My name is Susan Rose, and welcome to All About Artists. Today, our guest artist is Eva Friese, and she will share her unique artistic journey with us, a journey marked by her deep passion of art and her exploration of the sacred in her work. And before we begin our conversation, I would like to express my sincere gratitude to Matthew Tucker, Joanne Hurlbut, Nicole Brown. Their support and contributes has been invaluable in shaping this interview. Eva,
Yes.
What are your origins?
Hello to everyone, and thank you very much for this great opportunity. My name is Eva Maria Friese. I was born in Siemianowice, a small town in Silesia in Poland, but I have German citizenship. My family moved to Germany in 1958, where I grew up and lived in the city of Essen.
What is your professional training?
I received my vocational professional training at the University of Essen and obtained the academic degree of communication designer. And I worked in various companies as a designer. My great passion was still artistic painting, and I perfected my pictorial talent by attending courses held at the painting section of the Folkwangschule. It's a school of art. During my studies, I had the opportunity to hold personal and collective exhibitions. In 1988, I moved to Italy, to Palermo in Sicily. Since 2010, I live with my family near Milan. In Italy, I have formed my artistic style over the years.
What is your professional training? Did I just ask that? Did I just ask you that?
This way I've done.
I think I just asked you that. How and when did you become passionate about your art?
Since I was little, the activity that I liked more than all and for which I was most suited was drawing and painting. It gave me a lot of satisfaction and made me feel good. When I was growing up, I attended specific courses, as mentioned earlier, to learn the techniques and train the artistic eyes. I worked hard because I was undertaking 2 studies in parallel, designed to make a living, and painting, my great passion, which in a sense also serves design.
Eva Marie, how did you develop your style and define it?
I've always worked in the figurative. I think I've always painted in the same way. As a young woman, I experimented with different techniques and styles to learn and try new things. I would say that now I paint a figurative stylized or simplified. It's my style that I've developed over the years. At the beginning, I was drawing and painting a freehand, figurative and expressive, altering shapes and colors. Since I also painted portraits, and precision was required, especially when they were commissioned, I enjoyed exploring the details characteristic of the subject. Non-exalting accuracy, but simplifying and stylizing, even if at first glance it It is not noticeable. The same precision I demanded myself when I painted nature. That is vegetation. The precision in that case results from the fact that I also studied plants at the same time, but also here, as the portraits, I simplified the forms and details, not becoming too graphic.
What techniques do you use to express your ideas?
I used painting techniques such as oil, acrylic, and watercolor. It depends on the idea and project to be realized. With oil colors, you can leave even more time because it dries slowly. You can take details of a subject several times in a different times. Acrylics give a very similar result, at first sight the same, but they dry quickly. With acrylics, I superimpose layers of colors similar to watercolor, which mix together in depth to create an almost three-dimensional impression. This is achieved because they dry quickly. With oil paints, it would take a long time. With the watercolor, I create individual works or entire projects. It works fast and with great effects. I often use watercolors to find and test a subject for a painting. I love the pastels that as a techniques are between paintings and graphics, meaning drawing. Especially soft pastels can be mixed and smeared with your fingers on the paper to obtain special effects and tones. A sensual experience like all painting. Then there is pencil drawing for drafts and sophisticated drawings as for faces and illustrations.
Eva Marie, what themes did you elaborate on during your life?
The human body fascinated me very much in its anatomy that I studied as a young woman, but which remained me as an eternal task to elaborate its various forms and characteristics, actions they are expressed in its movements, or also show a particular state of the soul. The human body is a fascinating and mysterious landscape that changes with every movement. Who can draw human bodies can do everything. The same goes for faces, which are often seen just because a complex landscape itself. I'm fascinated by the spontaneous vegetation, the various species of plants that form wildflowers outside the meadows and woods, but also in gardens, orchards, and vegetable gardens, where the vegetation has the opportunity to create its own spontaneous composition of shapes and colors. Nature is like a great living work of art created by God, where my gaze is sinking as in a kaleidoscope of colors and variety of forms. Because man is part of the creation, I do not neglect the relationship of the person with nature because we are all one or should be. Nature also becomes a metaphor for telling human situations, current and past realities. Where I elaborate something of the creation, there is spirituality as an important component and as a guiding thread that accompanies my painting.
Could we see a few of your paintings? I'd like to see some of your artwork now.
Oh,
This one.
oh, I have to took this. Okay. Allora, this is the Pentecost of Alessandro Manzoni, a very famous poet of Italy. Allora, the painting is an interpretation of the poem Pentecost by Alessandro Manzoni. Unfortunately, I did not find a translation of this poem. This is the moment when the Holy Spirit descends on the apostles who are gathered in the cenacle. The Holy Spirit lays down as a rapid light on the apostles and on everything. He arouses various colors and makes the apostles speak in different languages. The apostles are gathered in their very first church, which I have represented with the symbol of the Trinity, the triangle. The colors are colors of light, as the refraction of white light that came out from the prism of crystal, pure and without shadows, leave from the apostles toward the world. On the divine colors, I have made a series of works. Here is one of them.
Could we see one more painting? Could we see another painting? Oh, I like that one.
This title is Waiting, Oil on Canvas. I have written something. Let us walk, pray, seek your footprints here among us. The waiting for you makes us get there where only you can meet us, to lead us into your infinite eternity. This is a scene in the Holy Land on the Lake of Tiberias. We were at the place where Jesus, after the resurrection, roasted fish for the disciples. The sun sets early there in February and casts long shadows. We were all in silence, meditating, each on his own, looking at the lake, imagining the sheen of the gospel happened in this place, but also waiting for the Lord, who we would have wanted to meet us on these waters. This is the same place. This is the Mensa Christi. The Mensa Christi is a rock on the shore of the lake Tiberias near Tabga, on which the risen Jesus prepared roasted fish for the disciples. I free the precious rock from the walls of the little church that guard it, and I have exposed it on the beach in the open air as it had been originally in the time of Jesus. In this scene, Jesus confirmed Peter as the primacy of the church. This is Alpha and Omega, the Alpha, beginning of the word, granted to us to hear and follow, wants to join the thoughts of all creatures conceived by God and the sounds of all existing things during our journey in space and time, not as a chaotic noise, but as an infinity of voices, sounds, and silences, orchestrated in a harmonious sequence until we reach that boundary that transforms us to listen and live that Omega in eternal. From everything we know and believe that exists, visible and invisible, here I have focused on what we believe only human, that is the soul at the time of its conception and sending into the channel of life with a visible form of temporary body. The conception of creatures happens where one intuits God, who makes himself drip in the space and time dimension. United thus, the soul with the body begins the path on earth, born from water as every single life. Regardless of the length of our earthly life, we reach the boundary that allows us to merge fully with the Creator. We perceive the noises, the sounds that spread in the world from the movement that creates life and the agitation of beings and things. Okay. Oh, this is my prisoner. I love it very much, this painting.
It is beautiful.
Freedom suspended, acrylic on canvas. The apparently lost present is upset by the nature of things already created. It is here that we find the starting point for cultivating the garden in the good origin of every being. The theme of prison is on the margins of our society. The prisoner who, stuck in his existence, undergoes a process of purification and personal growth and finally manages to free himself. The sufferer in the black and white background finds his life in the foreground in color. The black bars become vital light and freedom, metaphor of nature for life and liberation.
Okay. Eva, oh, well, there's another painting.
This is The Poor on the Ship, St. Francis. This painting I made for the 800 years of the stigmata of St. Francis. In the last year it was. 2 for 1, 2 saints in a figure. The poor on the ship that represents St. Francis traveling for his mission. You see here in the physical figure of another saint, the blessed Joseph Maria Cassan of the Cistercian order. I was desperately looking for that sitting position with a book in a hand in a corner of a ship, where I stood many years ago and saw a Franciscan friar who seemed to come out from the frescoes by Giotto in the Basilica in Assisi, the one who preaches to birds where I had just been a little earlier. He had a messy medieval look with old and worn clothes and uneven cut hair. I couldn't portray that on the ship. Otherwise, it would seem that I had copied the great Giotto. It would have been too banal, but he was really sitting there. Then I saw in Facebook the blessed Joseph Maria Cassan in the right position. I knew what to do and thanked God. For the ship, I was inspired by a strange, very long and bright red vehicle that passed me. I wanted to photograph the rice paddies near my house, and I have a part left on the photo. It looked like a ship. Oh, Paradise 1 and 2. This is a couple of canvases, Paradise 1 and 2, acrylic on canvas. For this work, composed of a pair of canvases, I was inspired by the Sicilian countryside, where I discovered cherries that made company with the olive trees. Adam and Eve are not the protagonists, but cherry tree and the olive tree that with their leaves cover them and wrap them almost disappear under the foliage, creating a symbiosis with the human. In sacred art, the cherries symbolize, by their red color, the blood of Christ shed during his passion, and by the shape of a heart, the love he has for us. The olive tree recalls the agony of Jesus in Gethsemane. Its fruits are the reward of perseverance. Adam and Eve are aware that the cherries and olive trees represents the reward for the commitment to cultivate the land and take care for the creation with love. They collect the fruits that give them nourishment and life. Here, cherries and olives ripen together because in paradise there is only one season, fertile and eternal. Oh, this is okay. The temptation of Jesus in the desert, acrylic on canvas. My work represents Jesus in the desert of Judah, where he spent 14 days fasting. I painted the scene without knowing that the desert was exactly the same. A priest who saw my painting at the time said to me, but it is really so, the desert where Jesus fasted. I was a little surprised by this. Years later, when I visited the place, I found it really is the same. The tempter wants to take possession of Jesus by approaching with his hand from behind, perfidious but almost imperceptible, making proposals to be adored. We know how it ends, and we can read it in Luke 4. When I had finished the painting, I noticed that the rock on which I set Jesus has a monstrous face. If it is pure chance, this addition was completing the painting. Okay. The risen Jesus with the disciples on the road of Emmaus, oil on canvas. This is the fourth station of the Way of Flight, currently located in the Institute Pope John Paul II in Loreto. Like the Way of Cross, which has 14 stations, so too is the Way of Light, which begins with the resurrection of Christ. Here we see the fourth station of the Way of Light, risen Jesus walking with the disciples towards Emmaus, to be read in Luke 24. After the crucifixion and death of Jesus, two disciples, disappointed by this fact, set out from Jerusalem towards Emmaus. Jesus approaches from behind, pretending to be a stranger, but something disturbs them and they look at him with wonder. They recognize him only in the inn by breaking bread. Nature plays an important role. The bright colors and flowering fields in the Easter period indicate resurrection and joy.
What?
This is the last one. Look there. Look there. Oil on canvas. Look there indicates the detail of lush flower bed full of plants and flowers. My gaze was attracted by the charge of happily composed colors. It was an already natural work of art that uses colors beautiful. We can take another one if you want.
Oh, I'd like to ask a question, Eva. I'd like to ask some questions. What made you decide to dedicate yourself to sacred art?
I have a...
And
Okay.
divisive.
My painting certainly improved with hard work and exercise, also because it was and remains my great passion. But I began to consider my talent a great gift of God. I believe that the spark of dedicating myself to Christian art happened after I realized a great family portrait where I also represented the members of the family who are no longer there and slowly move on the canvas toward eternal light. But that was a long time ago. After this painting, I felt inner changes in my soul. I felt the presence of God in my life. It did not happen immediately, but with a very patient sweetness on the part of God that led me towards my conversion. I was always a believer, but I had been away from God for a time and I felt an abysmal emptiness inside me. During one of these dark moments, I was filled crossed by a divine supernatural force or light. I cannot say otherwise. From one moment to the next, I did not feel abandoned to myself, but felt that there was someone divine who proposed me to guide me. Maybe that emptiness I felt was part of the program to be able to fish me out and make me feel refreshed, which is an indescribable feeling. A period of great spirituality and mystical events began with the presence of Jesus as divine guide. Jesus told me to tell him with painting because that was what I knew how to do. I began to depict visions, dreams, which are very personal. I also wrote prayers and poems that accompanied my journey of faith inspired by the divine that enveloped me. In that period, I met a group of artists who are active on the Italian territory, Catholic Union of Italian Artists. Of course, Jesus has opened my eyes and mine to see God in the world, but he is not always recognizable in the world, either by his will or because he is often obscured in everyday life. In my painting, I introduce that divine part that was
Yeah. I think she froze.
allowed to.
She's freezing. Are you back? Eva?
Yes, I'm here.
Oh, there you are. Okay, you're back. We have about 3 minutes left. Um, uh, do you make a difference? Do you make a difference between the sacred and the spiritual? And how do you depict the sacred?
Spiritual.
We've got about 3 minutes left.
Yes. Yes. Spirituality does not necessarily belong only to religions. Even unbelievers cannot deny, can somewhere inside of them, they are spiritual. It means we are not robots. I am convinced that all art in all its expressions is spiritual because it comes not only from the intellect of the artist, but above all from soul. And what is the intellect, if not also created by God? This is noticed when I was about to convince myself to create Christian art. The sacred in general is related to religion. In my art, it is not always recognizable. If I see the landscape that fascinates me, I would paint it because I see not only a harmony formed by assembly of lines and colors, hills, fields, and trees, but I see the beauty that comes from a peace that was already there from an ancient origin, better said, eternal, created by God. It will simply be a landscape that creates a sense of peace in the one or the other who observes it. And this for me is already a lot. There are no more incontaminated places where humanity has not put its hand to change in his favor, but this land was given to us to work and feed. For this reason, a landscape awakens our spirituality, observing and painting it. For me, instead, emanates also the sacredness. That is, that the peace that lies there releases because that land created God for us. The same when I deal with issues concerning women and men, humanity in general, and particular social situations, I often interview the relationship we have with nature to show that we are part of it, that is, of creation. Here we perceive a certain mysticism because I always start from the soul that in origin is always pure and God. And good.
Wonderful. What a great interview. Thank you so much for coming on. I love seeing you in person. It's